The words still echo in my mind like a slap across the face. Get lost, old lady. This is my house now, my own son. Marcus, 32 years old, and standing in the marble foyer of what he believed was his girlfriend's family estate, had just dismissed me like I was some unwelcome stranger. His girlfriend Vivian smirked beside him, her perfectly manicured nails wrapped around his arm like claws. What they didn't know was that I, Eleanor Blackwood, had been watching this little performance from the shadows of the grand staircase. And I owned every single brick of this Charleston mansion. You see, sometimes the people closest to you reveal their true colors when they think you're powerless. Today, my son was about to learn the most expensive lesson of his life. Before I continue, if you enjoy stories about family betrayal and justice, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell. And if you've ever faced something like this, share in the comments. We'll feature your story too. 3 months earlier, I was living what most people would consider a peaceful retirement in my modest downtown Charleston apartment. At 73, I'd learned to keep my true wealth hidden, a lesson taught by years of watching family members and supposed friends suddenly become very interested in my well-being once they caught wind of money. My late husband, Theodore, had built a shipping empire that I'd quietly expanded after his death 20 years ago. Most people, including my own children, assumed I lived off a small pension and social security. They had no idea about the offshore accounts, the property portfolio, or the fact that I owned half of Charleston's historic district through a series of shell companies. Marcus had always been my favorite, though I'd never admitted it aloud. Unlike his sister Patricia, who lived responsibly in Oregon with her teacher husband, Marcus had charm the kind that could light up a room, but also get him into serious trouble. He'd drifted through various careers: wannabe musician, failed entrepreneur, and most recently, what he called a lifestyle consultant, which seemed to involve a lot of expensive lunches and very little actual work. That Tuesday afternoon, he'd called with excitement buzzing in his voice. "Mom, I have incredible news. I'm moving in with Vivian, you remember, the girl I told you about. Her family has this amazing house, and she's letting me help manage the property. It's like a dream come true. Vivian Ashworth." I'd done my research on her the moment Marcus first mentioned her name 6 months ago. 28 years old, from a family that had lost their fortune 3 generations back, but still played the part of Charleston aristocracy. She worked as a real estate agent, specializing in luxury properties, and had a reputation for creative interpretations of ownership and authority. What Marcus didn't know was that the amazing house he was so excited about was 1247 Magnolia Street, a property I'd quietly purchased through one of my companies 5 years ago when the previous owners defaulted on their mortgage. The trouble began 2 weeks after Marcus moved in. He started posting photos on social media from what he called our family estate, showing off the library, the garden, the wine cellar. Friends and extended family began commenting, asking when they could visit the family mansion. Then came the phone call that changed everything. "Mom," Marcus said, his voice carrying a tone I'd never heard before, confident, almost condescending. "Vivian and I have been talking, and we think it's time you considered moving somewhere more appropriate for your age and financial situation." I set down my evening tea carefully. "I'm sorry, what do you mean?" "Well, you're paying rent on that tiny apartment when you could be in a nice senior community. Vivian knows about these places. Some of them are really lovely. And honestly, Mom, at your age, you shouldn't be trying to maintain independence when you could have help." The audacity took my breath away. "Marcus, I'm 73, not 93. I'm perfectly capable of. That's what everyone says." "Mom, look. Vivian's been in real estate for years. She knows about these things. We've already looked at a few places. There's this one facility that has great reviews, and it would be so much more practical for you, a facility. My son wanted to put me in a facility so he could playhouse in my own property with his girlfriend, and Marcus, I said carefully, what exactly would happen to my current living arrangements? Oh, we'd handle all of that for you. Vivian says she can help you break your lease, handle the logistics. She's really good at these things. You wouldn't have to worry about any of it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the way he'd said handle all of that, like I was a problem to be managed rather than his mother. But more than that, I was curious. How far would they take this little scheme? The next morning, I called my lawyer, Harrison Webb, a sharp man in his 50s who'd been handling my affairs for over a decade. Harrison, I need you to do something for me. And I need absolute discretion. 3 days later, I was standing outside 1247 Magnolia Street, watching as a moving truck pulled away. Marcus and Vivian were clearly settling in, arranging furniture like they own the place. I walked up to the front door and rang the bell. Vivian answered, her blonde hair perfectly styled even at 10 in the morning. When she saw me, her smile flickered for just a moment before resuming its practiced brightness. Mrs. Blackwood. What a lovely surprise. Marcus is in the garden. Let me get him for you. She led me through the foyer. And I noted how they'd rearranged the furniture I'd carefully selected when I'd restored the proper tie. Marcus appeared from the back patio, his face lighting up when he saw me. Mom, this is perfect timing. We were just talking about calling you. Come see the place, isn't it incredible? He gave me a tour like he was showing off his own home, pointing out the crown molding, the original hardwood floors, the restored chandelier. In the dining room, Vivian glided beside us, adding little comments about the family history and inherited pieces. It's beautiful. I said honestly, Vivian, your family has exquisite taste. She exchanged a quick glance with Marcus. Thank you. We've been so fortunate to maintain the property through the years. The audacity was breathtaking. But I maintained my composure. As we sat in the garden with iced tea, Marcus brought up the subject of my transition again, but this time Vivian took the lead. Mrs. Blackwood, I hope you don't mind, but Marcus has shared some concerns about your living situation as someone who works with seniors regularly. I can tell you that making the transition to assisted living before you absolutely have to is really tea. He's smart choice, assisted living. I repeated, well, not immediately, she said with a patronizing smile, but at your age, it's really about planning ahead, and honestly, the financial benefits are significant. You'd save so much money on rent, utilities, maintenance. Marcus nodded enthusiastically, and Mom, we could visit you all the time. It would be like having family close by. But with professional care available if you need it. I studied their faces. Marcus looked genuinely convinced he was helping me. Vivian looked like a cat who'd found an unattended bowl of cream. That's very thoughtful of both of you, I said slowly. I suppose I should start looking into my options. The relief on their faces was palpable. Over the following weeks, I played my part perfectly. I let them take me on tours of senior living facilities, nodding thoughtfully at the brochures Vivian provided, asking questions about meal plans and activity schedules. Meanwhile, I was quietly orchestrating something far more elaborate. Harrison and I worked out the details over several discreet lunch meetings. The beauty of the plan was its simplicity. I was merely going to reveal what was already true. But the timing and presentation would be everything. During this period, I also started paying attention to the small details of how Marcus and Vivian were living in my house. They'd thrown dinner parties, with Vivian introducing Marcus as her partner in the family estate. They'd given tours to friends, spinning elaborate stories about the property's history and their role in maintaining it, but the real revelation came when my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, called me one afternoon. "Eleanor, dear, I hope you don't mind me asking, but are you related to the young couple living in your Magnolia Street property?" I'd been friends with Mrs. Chen for years, and she was one of the few people who knew about some of my real estate investments. Why do you ask? Well, they've been telling people they own the house. The young woman even approached me about buying my property, said she was expanding the family holdings. I just thought it was odd since I know you purchased that house through your company. That evening, I called Marcus and told him I'd like to have dinner with him and Vivian. I've made a decision about the assisted living situation, and I'd like to discuss it with both of you. The joy in his voice was heartbreaking. That's wonderful, Mom. We're so proud of you for being proactive about this. Should we come to your place? Actually, why don't I come to you? I'd like to see the house again. It's so beautiful. And I want to enjoy it while I still can. When I arrived the following evening, they'd clearly prepared for a celebration. Candles were lit in the dining room, wine was open, and they both looked like they'd dressed for the occasion. So, Vivian said once we were seated, "Tell us about your decision." I took a sip of wine, an excellent vintage that I'd actually purchased and stored in this very cellar 3 years ago. I've toured several facilities, and I think you're right. It is time for a change. Marcus reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I'm so glad you're being realistic about this, Mom. You'll be so much happier with people your own age and proper care available, and the financial benefits," Vivian added, "will really allow you to enjoy your retirement without worrying about expenses." I nodded thoughtfully. "There is one small complication, though." They both looked at me with concern. "Well, breaking my lease might be more expensive than we thought. My landlord mentioned some penalties that could be quite steep." "Don't worry about that," Marcus said immediately. "We'll help you handle it." "What kind of penalties?" "Several $1,000s, potentially. I'm not sure I can afford it, along with the deposit and moving expenses for the new place." Vivian and Marcus exchanged glances. "Mom," Marcus said carefully, "maybe we could help you with some of the costs as a loan." "Of course." "Oh, I couldn't ask you to do that. It's no problem at all," Vivian said smoothly. "We've been thinking about this as an investment in your future happiness. Family takes care of family, right?" The irony of her words hung in the air like smoke. "That's incredibly generous," I said. "Are you sure you can afford it? I know money can be tight for young people these days." Marcus waved off my concern. "We're doing very well, Mom. The house has given us so many opportunities. Vivian's business is booming, and I've got several projects lined up." "Actually," Vivian said, and I could see the calculation in her eyes, "we might even be able to help you beyond just the moving expenses. If you needed ongoing financial assistance, we could work something out." "What kind of arrangement did you have in mind?" "Well," she said, glancing at Marcus, "we could provide you with a monthly allowance to supplement your income at the facility. In exchange, you could sign over power of attorney for your financial affairs. It would simplify everything. We'd handle all your paperwork, bills, everything. You wouldn't have to worry about any of it." Power of attorney. They wanted control of my finances. "That sounds," I paused, as if overwhelmed by their generosity. "That sounds incredibly thoughtful. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to decide right now," Marcus said quickly. "But Mom, we really want to take care of you. You've done so much for us over the years." I looked around the dining room, my dining room, at the chandelier I'd restored, the wallpaper I'd selected, the built-in cabinets I'd had custom made. "You know, this house is so beautiful. Vivian, your family is so fortunate to have maintained it through the generations." She smiled, but I caught something flickering in her eyes. "Yes. It's been in the family for quite some time." "How long, exactly?" Oh, she said vaguely, several generations. My great-great-grandfather was one of the original owners. The lie came so smoothly. I almost admired her audacity. That's fascinating, I said. I'd love to hear more about the history. Do you have any old documents or records about the property? For the first time that evening, Vivian looked uncomfortable. Most of the old papers were lost in a fire years ago. Family stories, passed down through word of mouth. Marcus nodded supportively. Vivian's told me some incredible stories about this place. It's amazing how much history these old Charleston houses hold. I smiled and raised my glass. Well, here's to new beginnings and family taking care of family. As we clinked glasses, I felt a mixture of sadness and determination. My son truly believed he was helping me, but he'd been so thoroughly manipulated by Vivian that he couldn't see the truth right in front of him. Tomorrow, everything would change. The next morning, I called Marcus and asked him to meet me at Harrison Webb's law office downtown. I want to finalize all the arrangements we discussed, I told him, and I'd like Vivian to be there too, since she's been so helpful with everything. They arrived at Harrison's office promptly at 10 a.m., both dressed professionally and carrying a folder of documents. Vivian had clearly done her homework. She had printouts about power of attorney forms, facility contracts, and even a timeline for transferring my assets. Harrison greeted us in his conference room, a distinguished man with silver hair and the kind of presence that commanded respect. He'd agreed to let me handle the revelation in my own way, though I could see he was struggling not to smile at the audacity of what was about to unfold. Mrs. Blackwood has asked me to facilitate this meeting to discuss some significant financial arrangements, Harrison began formally, before we proceed. I want to make sure everyone understands the legal implications of the documents we'll be reviewing today. Marcus and Vivian nodded earnestly. Now, Harrison continued, Mrs. Blackwood, you mentioned wanting to discuss property arrangements as part of these new living situations. Yes, I said, reaching into my purse for a folder. There are some things about my financial situation that I haven't shared with Marcus, and I think it's time for complete transparency. Marcus looked concerned. Mom, you don't have any debts you've been hiding, do you? Because we can help with those too. No debts, dear, rather the opposite. Actually, I pulled out the first document and slid it across the table to him. This is the deed to 1247 Magnolia Street. Vivian went very still. Marcus looked at the document, confusion spreading across his face. I don't understand. Why do you have a deed to Vivian's house? Because I own it, Marcus. I purchased it 5 years ago through Blackwood Holdings, one of my companies. The silence in the room was profound. Marcus stared at the deed, then at me, then at Vivian, who had gone pale. That's impossible, Vivian said, but her voice had lost all its confidence. My family has owned that house for generations. I pulled out another document. This is the mortgage default notice for the previous owners, the Morrison family, who lost the property in 2019. They were no relation to you, Vivian. I bought the house at auction, restored it, and have been using it as a rental property. Harrison leaned forward. I have the complete chain of title here, if anyone would like to review it. Marcus was staring at Vivian like he'd never seen her before. You told me it was your family's house. Vivian started, then stopped. The game was up, and she knew it. There's more. Marcus, I said gently. Harrison, would you please show them the portfolio summary? Harrison slid a thick folder across the table. Mrs. Blackwood's current holdings include 17 properties in Charleston, a diversified investment portfolio worth approximately $12 million, and controlling interests in 4 companies, including the shipping business she inherited and expanded after her husband's death. Marcus opened the folder with shaking hands. Mom, you're wealthy. Yes, I have been for quite some time. I looked at both of them. The question is, What exactly did you think you were accomplishing by trying to manipulate me into signing? Over power of attorney. Vivian found her voice, but it came out as a whisper. We were trying to help you by lying about owning my property. By convincing my son I was a helpless old woman who needed to be managed. Marcus looked like he might be sick. Mom, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know about the house, or your money, or any of it. Vivian told me. Vivian told you what you wanted to hear. I said that you'd found an easy life with a wealthy girlfriend, living in a beautiful house without having to work for it. That's not fair, Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction, isn't it? I pulled out my phone and scrolled to his social media posts. Here you are calling it our family estate. Here's a post about generational wealth and blessed to be part of Charleston's historic commune. Tie. And here, I scrolled to a more recent post. Is you telling your friends that you're learning the family business of property management? Each screenshot was like a physical blow. Marcus slumped in his chair, the full weight of his situation finally sinking in. Vivian, however, tried one last desperate play. Mrs. Blackwood, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I never claimed to own the property outright. I said my family had connections to it, which could be interpreted. Stop, my voice cut through her explanation like ice. I've spent weeks documenting your lies. You've told people you own the house. You've approached neighbors about buying their properties as part of expanding family holdings. You've collected rent from the subletting arrangement you didn't tell Marcus about. Yes, I know about the graduate students you've been renting the third floor to. Harrison consulted his notes. We also have documentation of several other properties where Ms. Ashworth has misrepresented her authority to potential clients and investors. Vivian's face crumpled. The sophisticated Charleston socialite facade fell away, revealing someone much younger and more desperate than she'd pretended to be. Marcus, I said, turning to my son, I want you to understand something. I'm not angry that you're struggling financially. I'm not even angry that you wanted to help me with what you thought were legitimate concerns about my independence. I'm angry that you allowed yourself to be used as a weapon against me. Tears were starting to form in his eyes. Mom, I'm so sorry. I thought I was finally doing something right for once, taking care of you the way you always took care of me. The genuine remorse in his voice broke something inside me. But I pressed on. This lesson had to be complete. Do you remember what you said to me yesterday when I asked to have dinner? You said you were proud of me for being realistic about my limitations. You talked about people my age needing proper care and supervision. I was wrong. I was so wrong. And do you remember what you said to me in the foyer of my own house 3 days ago when I arrived earlier than you expected? Marcus looked confused. Then realization dawned on his face. Oh God, I told you to. I called you. You told me to get lost, old lady, and said it was your house now. The words hung in the air like an accusation. Marcus buried his face in his hands. I didn't know, he whispered. I swear on Dad's grave. I didn't know it was your house, but you knew I was your mother. And you dismissed me like I was a stranger who had no right to be there. Harrison cleared his throat diplomatically. Mrs. Blackwood, what would you like to do moving forward? I looked at my son, really looked at him, and saw not the charming man who talked his way through life, but a scared boy who'd finally realized the consequences of his choices. Marcus, you're going to move out of my house today. You're going to apologize to every person you misled about your living situation. And you're going to return every item you've removed from the property. Of course, Mom, anything you want, but more importantly, you're going to figure out how to build a life based on truth instead of convenient stories. I'll help you. I'll always help you when you're genuinely trying, but I will never again enable you to live in fantasy. He nodded, tears now flowing freely. I turned to Vivian. As for you, Harrison has prepared a comprehensive report of your fraudulent activities for the South Carolina Real Estate Commission. Your license will likely be suspended pending investigation, please. She said, I'll do anything. I'll disappear, leave Charleston, never bother your family again. You misunderstand. I said calmly, this isn't about revenge, this is about consequences. You used my son to steal from me, and you've been running similar scams on other people. That has to stop. Harrison handed her a folder. These are cease and desist orders regarding the 3 other properties where you've misrepresented your authority. You have 30 days to resolve any outstanding issues with affected parties. Vivian took the folder with shaking hands. Her earlier confidence completely evaporated. However, I continued, I am prepared to offer you a choice. Both Marcus and Vivian looked at me with desperate hope. You can accept the consequences I've outlined. Or you can try to fight this legally, but I should warn you I have resources you can't imagine, and I have documentation of everything you've done. If you choose to fight, I will use every tool at my disposal to ensure you face the full legal consequences of your actions. I'll accept the consequences, Vivian said. Immediately, good, then we're done here. Marcus stood shakily. Mom, can we talk, privately? I looked at my son, really looked at him, and saw genuine remorse mixed with shame and fear. Not today, Marcus. You need time to think about who you want to be. When you're ready to have that conversation honestly, without trying to charm your way out of responsibility, call me. As Harrison walked them to the door, Marcus turned back. Mom, I love you. I know I messed up, but I do love you. I love you too. Marcus, that's why this had to happen. After they left, Harrison returned to his seat. That was remarkably restrained of you, Eleanor. I half expected you to have them both arrested. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Revenge would have been satisfying for a moment, but lasting change that takes a different approach. 6 months later, I'm sitting in the garden of 1247 Magnolia Street, my garden, watching the sunset paint the Charleston sky in shades of gold and pink. The house has new tenants, a young couple who teach at the local college, who appreciate the history and beauty without trying to claim ownership of either. Marcus calls me every Sunday now. He found a real job working for a non-profit that helps seniors navigate financial planning. The irony isn't lost on either of us, but he's good at it because he understands, intimately, how trust can be abused. He's building something real for the first time in his life, and I'm proud of him for that. Vivian left Charleston as she said she would. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she moved back to her hometown in Georgia and is working as a receptionist while she figures out her next steps. I hope she learns from this experience. But that's her choice to make. As for me, I've decided to be a little less secretive about my success. Not ostentatious, that's never been my style, but honest about my capabilities and accomplishments. I've started mentoring young women entrepreneurs, sharing not just money but knowledge and experience. The most important lesson I learned through all of this isn't about money or property or even family dynamics. It's about the difference between being underestimated and being invisible for too long. I let people assume I was just a quiet old widow living on a pension. I thought I was being modest, but I was really being dishonest about who I am and what I've accomplished. I am Eleanor Blackwood. I am 73 years old. I built a business empire. I own half of downtown Charleston, and I will never again let anyone, family or otherwise, treat me like I'm powerless just because I'm older. Sometimes the greatest revenge is simply refusing to be diminished. Have you ever faced this kind of betrayal from someone you trusted? Share your story in the comments. We'll feature it in a future video. And remember, age is just a number, but wisdom and strength are forever.